Hey there, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like. We're digital now, 100%. Had 29 million people hit the website, but you know what? Oh, I used to love having the magazine, but I don't miss it anymore. It's all on the web. Still getting print though, but it's been fun though. Making the transition from print to face-to-face to digital. It's just been an amazing transformation. So I'm a digital guy. So hope everybody's having a great week. Super Bowl week here, coming up this Sunday in the States. I'm from Philly, so I have to wear my Philly green. And actually, I've got a really good story for all you guys out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. My family, my grandmother's sister was married to the original owner, Mr. Leonard Toews, who owned the Philadelphia Eagles. So when I grew up, I was like an Eagles guy. I used to go up and sit up in the owner's box and all that stuff. And he had a trucking company and bought the team. And for those of you out there that are football guys, it was like, when I was growing up, Wilbur Montgomery, Ron Jaworski, Harold Carmichael, Bill Berge, those are the days when I was growing up with the Eagles. And being from Philly, I know the town is absolutely going berserk this week. All my friends were texting me last week. They were at the game when they beat the Niners to get in. And so we're all kind of, it's kind of a hump day here in the States, but we're getting closer and the hype is getting up. And, Sunday it's going to be a wild night, and I'm sure it'll be a great game. And listen, I'm all for may the best team win. I'd like to see just a really close game and let it go down to the last play. And if they win, great. If not, they still have a great season. Making it to the championship game, you can't go wrong. So, with that said, but listen, it's now February. January got where'd it go? It's already February. It's unbelievable, that the month is already gone and the New Year's, done. And now in my emails, I'm saying, hey, I used to say Happy New Year. Now it's have the best, good success in the remainder of it. So time flies when you're having fun. Today, got a special guest from down under in Perth, Australia. His name is Cian Brennan. He's the CEO of Quantum Contract Solutions. And he reached out to me, found me on the web, just like a lot of people do on our website and the magazine and so forth. And said, hey, so he had a podcast. So we have a podcast, we should do some collaboration. And I said, I'm all for that stuff. The podcast community is a little different than like doing business. It's kind of like a friendly camaraderie. We're all in this together. So, we help each other promote. So, Cian, say hello to our listeners out there, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk down in Perth.
Hey David, hey listeners, how you guys going? It's what time is it for you there, David?
It's 8:30 in the morning.
Ooh, it's 9:30 in the evening for me.
Yeah, last night I got back. I was at the 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒 show here in Atlanta yesterday. Humongous, tons of people. It was great to see people out at the event. And I told my wife, I go, I'll be down there 4 hours. I was down there until 6 o'clock last night. I mean, I walked the whole show. I don't know how many miles I walked. A humongous event. And anyway, I got home last night. And I said, hey, I got a podcast at 8 o'clock in the morning. She's like, you never do those in the morning. I'm like, well, this guy's in Australia. And she goes, what time is it? 8 o'clock. What time is it there? So we have Siri. Siri, what time is it in Australia at 8 a.m.? We figured out it was about 9 or 10 o'clock, depending on what side of the country you were on. And I said, yeah, he wanted to do it at 7 a.m. And I was like, oh man, I'm not getting up that early because I know I was gonna, I got home and I had to go through emails and I was up last night. I was like, oh man. So I appreciate you giving me the extra hour just to get my act together.
That's okay, David. That's okay. We're well used to it. Working in the US from Australia. Pretty much this is norm for me and some of the guys that are here too.
Oh yeah. You know what? Up at night I'm posting. So a lot of people that send me content to post on my site, they're from all over the world, and I have a bunch of people in Australia. So right about when I'm getting done, I'll start getting emails from people that are overseas, and they've got to wait for me to catch some Z's to wake up the next day before I go back to them, but before I go to bed, I start seeing them come in, so it's I'm like on a 24-hour cycle. I totally get it.
Oh, I tell you, so we have some we have some staff in the US, so sometimes I got to get up super early. So I have a 5 a.m. meeting to deal with these guys, and then I have sometimes I have like 2 work days. It's like
Yeah.
5 a.m. until, and then I go until lunchtime. Like, I need to take a rest now, and then I go again, and then it's more stuff in the evening. So I love it though, but it's just, yeah, part and parcel of
You're in construction, so people have to get up early. So my family has been in construction. We're 5th generation. We're in recycling, and like I said, I grew up outside of Philly, so they've been in business since 1888, and now my cousins are running it. So, but when I grew up here in the States, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, you get your license when you're 16. So all the grandsons, when you got your license, you had to go work in the scrapyard. You had no choice. That's just the way it was when I grew up. So I grew up with construction, knowing that I had to get up. You had to be on the site by 7 o'clock. OSHA, wash, and I've shoveled asbestos. We laid railroad tracks. We were in demolition, and so getting up early, nothing new to me. Plus, I have 4 dogs, and they got to get up. So I was just hoping they won't bark. I just heard my wife go down and take them outside, and so hopefully it'll be quiet. So what everybody out there? So the reason why I had Cian on was he's actually a contract management service. He helps subcontractors become more efficient and just contracting in general. Help you through the legalese and all that stuff. And that's why, with today, with paperwork and permitting and all that stuff, time management is crucial. So if you can, streamline your process, you can actually spend your time, building more projects or helping your company become more profitable. And that's the name of the game, because you definitely want to have, the more efficient you are and the more because that is addicting. The better off you're going to be in the long run. And that's why we had Cian on today. So Cian, the way this works is we're going to do it in 3 parts. First one, you tell us, your story, where you grew up, you play any sports, and all that good stuff, and how you ended up at Quantum. And then we'll talk about the roller coaster over the last 2.5, 3 years now almost, and lessons learned and how you weathered the storm down under, and then one positive thought or phrase with our listeners. You can leave your contact info, and then we'll close it out. So with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Okay, so we are. You talked about generations of construction, so we're the same. So I remember when my grandfather died. He lived in a place called Galway in the west of Ireland, and when he died, it was framed, and I remember it so well. The title was "The Man Who Built Galway." Right. So he built hospitals, he built schools, water towers, like really infrastructure that's still there now. And that was something that inspired me to get into the construction. And growing up, there's probably my favorite story growing up is myself and my cousin. My dad was like, "You guys need to work. You're lazy buggers. You need to get out there and work." Right. So we were 12 or 13, no more, David, than 12 or 13. Right. And he got us on a building site. We're working as laborers. And long story short, the guys went to us and said, "Hey, can you guys drive? And we're like, "Oh, sure, maybe, sure." So they go, "Can you drive a dumper, like a dump truck?" And we're like, "Yeah." So a couple of weeks later, my parents drive by and they just saw these 2 13-year-olds driving dumpers around the site, like picking stuff off from one side to the other. And like, "What the hell is going on there? Why is it?" And they're like, "Oh, they're great." Like the only thing that was missing from that scene. No, the only thing that was missing from that scene was a license, yeah, for sure. But no, it was cigarettes dangling out of our mouths. That's the only thing that was missing. That's what we needed to really have the look. So things were a little bit different back then. But I wanted to get into construction, but the advice given to me was not to get into contracting or subcontract. Go up the chain, go to university, go client side, and that's kind of what I did. But so having kind of graduated university, what I wanted to do was I still had that need for adventure. I still wanted to be on site. I didn't want to be office bound. So I ended up going to Australia. And then there was 2008 where the rest of the world went bang. oil and gas and mining in Australia went boom, right? It went like through the roof. So there was huge construction projects everywhere. Chevron was here, Shell were here, like just massive projects. And so I was on site in those remote places, being part of the construction projects for them. Always on the contract side, so contracts, but client side. And then my ventures took me to the Middle East. I went to Saudi, and I went to Qatar, and then I spent 2 years working in Iraq for Shell. And one of the things I started to notice being client side was that contractors and subcontractors were losing money all the time and going out of business. And it was, I wouldn't say it was, I was on the dark side, I would say. It was me receiving people's people's change orders and rejecting them, me receiving payment applications and rejecting them. And I'm like, but the thing was that they didn't understand that the documentation that they were giving me was so poor. And they didn't understand that I'd have to take this documentation, turn around and present it internally. And so what I would do was essentially, well, no, I'm not, that's terrible. Like, you've not complied with the contract. I can't pay you, basically. And so many of these guys were so good on site, but their paperwork was so bad,
awful,
and so awful, and so they weren't getting paid because of it. And then they ended up, they basically signed a terrible contract. They had terrible cash flow on their project, and they ended up getting squeezed and like lost a lot of money or went out of business over and over again. And so when I was thinking back to my grandfather, I was like, I don't think he would be proud of me in this role that I'm doing now. How about, because I know the insides of these big tier 1 construction companies, these big companies. How about I start a business that can help subcontractors navigate the insides of these companies? So help them sign better contracts that are commercially in their favor. So show them how to negotiate the contracts, show them how to get your change orders and extensions of time approved, and how to avoid disputes. And that's the basis of what we do as a company. And so we bring in a process into other people's companies that allows, particularly like subcontractors have a problem in the industry in that they probably have the most hostile contract in the whole contractual chain. So the owner, the guy who's a government, oil and gas company, mining company, developer, whoever it is, he wants to build a thing. He gives it to a general contractor to do all of the work, and they have a contract between them, and that's kind of okay. They have lawyers on both sides. But that general contractor, when he subs out the work to the guys who are actually going to do it, he makes that contract way more aggressive than the one that he signed, right? I think if we're in construction, everybody knows this, right? Problem is, the subcontractors don't have the expertise. They don't have the time to review the contracts. And so they end up just signing them as is, or just signing them, like not really understanding what they're getting into. And then something goes wrong, and it goes badly wrong for them. And that's why the construction industry has the highest insolvency rate out of any industry. So 26% of all insolvencies come from the construction industry. That's the reason, that's the problem we're solving. So we started Quantum in 2019, and yeah, we've grown to Australia, New Zealand, the US. And it's obviously something people need, and it works, which is good. We're helping. Our mission is to help 1,000 construction companies to fight back contractually. And the way I look at subcontractors is subcontractors are the only companies that actually construct, because the GCs don't do anything, right?
Yeah, they're the captain of the ship. They sit in the chair. Nothing against you guys out there. Don't get me wrong.
No, of course, we still needed, but the subcontractors, the steel fabricators, you're talking about the HVAC guys, whatever, scaffolders. These are the guys that are typically they're family-owned businesses that have grown into big businesses, and these guys need help. The way we always try and explain to our clients is there's 2 parts. There's a bit more to it than this, but if you want to simplify it, there's 2 parts of construction. There's constructing, and then there's getting paid for constructing. And you need to be good at both, right? You can do an amazing job and still not get paid for it, right? So you need to be good on both things.
My wife's an interior designer contractor, and she's actually a federal contractor. She's registered with the government, and she's she's the captain of the ship. She's not knocking down the walls or whatever. She's picking the tile. She's, and right now here in the States with the roller coaster for the last couple of years, people have just been going berserk residentially, redoing their basements, their homes, trying to get them sold. And, but she's got a really good team, but I don't know how intricate, her contracts are with her subs and so forth, but she's got a good team and they're very, very loyal to her because she pays them right, pays them on time, pays them good money, feeds them lunch, treats them like gold, because without your subs, you can't get the job done. And that's really the problem here in the States is there's not enough labor. And then if you do get labor, you don't know, like you said, sometimes the general or the subcontractor will get themselves into something that they shouldn't have done or shouldn't have signed. And they get in deep and they can't perform and they go belly up. And
it's happening. It's pretty bad. But the last quarter is the worst quarter since 2008. People going out of business, and we talk about the roller coaster of what we've had. But the main thing that happened was all governments stimulated economies somehow, tried to, and the smarter governments stimulated construction, because if you stimulate, this is my opinion only, right? If you stimulate and we give everyone $1,000 or one, I think the US and some states did do that, right? It's not great, right? In my opinion, if I give you $1,000,
it wasn't. Listen, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, right. You give you $1,000 and then someone spends it. They're probably going to spend it on a TV or something, and that's going straight out of the US, right? The money is going out of the US. Whereas if they stimulate projects and economies and build bridges and stuff, at least you're left with the end product, which is a new bridge. So it helps the economy overall. And so the government did stimulate a lot of construction. And so which meant there was loads of projects. And so there was loads of projects, people won projects. And then they won lump sum projects. And then guess what happened? Couldn't get materials, couldn't get people, couldn't deliver on the projects. And that's how we've had a lot of these companies going out of business, because they can't deliver. They can't do what they said they were going to do. And it's coming back to bite them.
A lot of the contractors here in the States, a lot of them have told me last year was like one of the best years that they've had. They could have actually had even a better year, but they had to turn away business because they didn't have the labor, and the product shortage and the hindrances there didn't help. That was just kind of like, just piling on. But there was a labor shortage. People just didn't want to work, and or you couldn't find a project manager, you couldn't find superintendents, you couldn't find estimators. You just can't find those guys. And if they do, they don't want to make the change. You're gonna have to pay them buku bucks, and then you don't know if the chemistry's there. But that's what I heard from a lot of the GCs here in the States. That if I would have had more help, I could have built more stuff. And that was a serious issue. And yesterday, actually, I had stopped by several booths because I'm all about planting the seed in the schools and getting the kids, not when they're in high school. They've already said, "Oh, I want to go to college. I want to go to Harvard. I want to play Duke lacrosse or whatever." We want to get shop class brought back. When I grew up, we had shop class. They took that out of the schools. We want to get that back.
No way. Yeah, they should get that back.
Yeah. They took it out. And there's two things that they need to put back in my opinion, and is they need to put the shop class back into school, and they also need to teach people how to balance a checkbook. Okay.
For sure. Personal finance, without a doubt.
Without a doubt, you need to know how to balance a checkbook, and that you can't spend more money than you have. And running up debt on a credit card is not the way to live. All right. And
the other thing that is happening in education at the moment, which I really like, but I think it's going to go there. So the traditional states is so bad for this. Ireland is free education. You go to university, it's free, right? But you guys will borrow money to invest in education with the intention of getting a return on your investment down the line. But the problem is, you're not getting that return on investment anymore. You can go to Harvard or whatever, and then you're not getting, like, your return on investment is like a 10-year wait or something until you can pay it off. It's wild. And I don't think that the way the colleges are at the moment, I don't think you're actually coming out useful in the world. And so Ernest & Young had this thing called EY University, where they're going back to the old way of doing it, where they go back to, like, you know how if you were a carpenter, you get a trade and you'd become an apprentice. They're doing that, but for professions. Right. So instead of going to university, you go to EY University, you come in and you start doing coding, or you start doing whatever. And it's like a trade. You do it, you're becoming an apprentice, you get really good at it. That for me is more attractive. If someone comes out of an education system like that, I'm more willing to hire them, because you're going to be good at my business, as opposed to you've got a degree and then you've never actually worked in a place. But yet, that's not that attractive to me.
So I went to prep school. I went to boarding school. So I was a hockey player. I wanted to play professional hockey. I didn't even pick up a lacrosse stick till I was sophomore, I think, in prep school, and ended up being probably a better lacrosse player than I was a hockey player. Anyway, I was an economics major, political science too. So I was a dual major when I went to University of Denver. And but I was a ski bum. I was on the 5-year plan. You know, I took a year off and worked up on the mountain and stuff. And but I had that work ethic. You know, I came from a military family, and you know, learned at the early, just like you, I was on the construction site, you know, down at the steel yard, you know, playing with the trucks, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so my son, he went to aviation mechanics school. He just got his A&P license. He's been at Boeing now for almost 2 years, and he gets a job offer every day. And so getting back to this labor thing, yesterday I was at this show to pony up what you were just saying. They had a bunch of booths there where they had training courses or you know, entrepreneurial apprenticeships that they were offering to people. So I told my son, I said, look, you know, you know, my wife has this federal contractor business. Look, you know, well, you could be the PM and you can teach this thing and become a federal contractor, and you know, be a millionaire. You know, you become a plumber. Everybody needs water. You can write your ticket. So he always liked to work with his hands. And when he was in high school, they did have a shop class, and you know, kind of like an automotive gig. And but he didn't have the math skills or test scores to get in. So I had a meeting with the school, and I said, look, if there's one person, and we're talking about 4,000 kids in this high school. So you were an athlete, you were an academic, you know, 4.0 student, you were kind of lost, you know, you're just left, you know, slipped through the cracks. I said, look, if there's one kid that you need to have, you know, at the school, at the shop class, is this guy. Because my son, he's not interested in English. He wants to work with his hands. And so they didn't get him in. So you know what I did? I yanked him out of the school for his senior year. I homeschooled him, and he went to school online. He worked in the garage. He was a waiter. He worked. He got experience. He was putting money. And first, he wanted to be a motorcycle guy. I said, look, if you want to be a motorcycle tech, you got to work someplace warm where they're going to ride all year. Then he wanted to be an auto tech. I said, you need your own shop. Same thing with money. If you want to make money, you've got to be your own owner. And so then we took a tour of this aviation school, and there's about 600,000 aviation techs that are going to retire. And if you fly on a jet, you know, during you know, the shutdown, you know, all those planes, you know, a lot of people weren't flying. They just can't sit on the runway. They have to be maintained. You just can't let them sit.
Let me circle back. Remind me to tell you a story about those planes, right? I'll let you finish, but circle back.
So anyway,
okay?
he did his 2 years, and he learned welding, woodworking, sheet metal. He learned all that stuff. And then he did a contract year with Boeing while he was taking his A&P license, which is airframe and powertrain. And now that he's licensed, you know, federally licensed by the FAA, he can work on anything that has a jet engine. You know, it could be a boiler in a hospital, you know, airplane, aeronautics, you know, an Abrams tank, you know, that has a jet engine in it. So anything that has that, he can work on it. But it's amazing. A lot of his friends went to pilot school. And the first day that he was in school, one of his buds texted him that went to become a pilot. And he said, our instructor just said, we need more maintenance techs than we need pilots. So if any of you guys want to make the switch, now is the time to do it. Because he wasn't sure if he had made the right decision, because all his buds were going to become pilots. He was going to be on the flight line. And, but right then and there, you know, now he's worked, you know, at Boeing, he's working on the 787 Dreamliner. And, you know, they just started that platform. And, so every day another airline contacts him, you know, that, you know, they want him and stuff. And I just said, look, you know, put them on a file, and when the right one comes along, you'll have your journey, and or you could stay at Boeing for the rest of your life. I mean, that, that's a big, mammoth of a company. And but the thing is that I saw that that was my trigger, to kind of push this thing. So Stanley has this thing called Rock the Trades. And that I had a guy on my podcast. I found him, on LinkedIn, and they have this ambassadorship where they go out to high schools or middle schools, and they, like where they have career day. And you can go out and talk to these kids and plant a seed about becoming a welder, becoming a plumber, becoming an electrician. Don't look down on it as blue collar. It's a way that you can make millions and millions of dollars, and you can be your own boss, and you can learn to be a business person, an entrepreneur. Instead of doing the 4-year college route and getting a basket weaving degree that's not going to gain you anything, and you're going to end up in a coffee shop being a barista, and with $100,000 worth of debt. And it's just it makes me ill, about the education system here in the country. And all you universities out there, don't get me wrong, okay? Some of them are really, really good, but the vast majority of you're turning out people that are not, I know kids that don't know how to drive a stick, that can't change a tire, that, they don't know how to do anything, and that's not the way that I was brought up. And it's amazing, when you do stuff with your hands, and whether it's digitally or, mechanically or construction, seeing something you've built yourself, just like this magazine. I'm actually, I'm a constructor. I built this editorial, paper, ink, when I was mailing and stuff. I'm a manufacturer. That's what I did. I built this magazine every month, with different components. So, my construction background is kind of, I've used it with my publishing firm, now I'm digitally, but I'm still building stuff every day. And so I'm on this kind of drive of, hey, if you have a son out there or a daughter, and maybe she's not the not a 4.0 student or whatever, there are ample opportunities out there, because we need all these workers. Like in the airline, 600,000 people are going to retire. Who's going to replace those people? And on the planes. And if we had more welders, superintendents, PMs, construction wise, the whole world would be much better off. I know here in the States we would be. So we like to go out and, if I could get one kid out of 30 in a class to become a plumber or an electrician, or, or working construction, I feel like, my job has been done. Because, if there were, a million of me out there doing that in all the schools around the States, telling these, local municipalities and the school boards, hey, you need to bring shop class back. You need to teach people how to balance a checkbook, and, and change the curriculum. We would be much better off. And so yesterday I was talking to all these people, and there was this local, HVAC union, and we were having this little 5-minute conversation, but it was so in depth. He's like, I'm going to call you. I'm like, I'm going to put you on my podcast, and you can tell people that you're here. We want to help you find these guys. So these apprenticeships, but you got to plant the seed early, because once they get that college thing, oh, I want to go and hang out. Oh, they just built this new student center, and they got a pool, and they got that's not the real world. It's not. When business is a very competitive thing. And I'm an athlete, so I got my lacrosse sticks behind me this side, and so I understand about winning, losing. I have thick skin, I've broken bones, and I'm like Captain Leg. I've had both my ACLs replaced. I've won games, I've lost games, I've scored a lot of goals, and I still play in the old man's league. My glory days are over, but I understand all the hard work that I had to do to get there. And just like starting this podcast, I didn't know what I was doing. I had to do it and just start from scratch, just like you. So it that whole aspect of hard work and building things, and that just at the end of the day, just like at the end of the game, if you know that even if you lost, you win, you learn a lot from losing, believe it or not. And if you can look yourself in the mirror, say, hey man, I gave it my all, but I know tomorrow's another day, the sun's going to rise, and I'm going to do it all over again. That is the most important thing. And that's what I tried to install in my kid. And I used to tell him, 20 years from now, you're going to say, Dad, you were so right all the time. You said, you know, when down the road, I know I'm hard on you, but I'm doing it for a reason. Because when you fly the nest, I want to make sure that you're prepared when you go out in the real world, because it's vicious out there. It is brutal, you know, being in business. And you gotta have thick skin to do it. But you also need the tools and the skills to get it done. So tell me the plane story.
Okay. So they're in Singapore and Ireland, actually. Singapore and Ireland are like the hubs of aircraft leasing, right? So it's tax efficient. And so with aircraft leasing, every time in between a lease, so most airlines actually lease planes. They don't own their own planes. Okay, so they'll lease planes, better for accounting and whatnot, right? And write-offs and stuff. And but every time there's in between leases, the planes need to be stored somewhere. Okay, but and somewhere, like, you know, somewhere that's dry and like the plane doesn't get ruined, basically, until the next lease kicks off.
Sure.
And so there's a guy there, and is a friend of a friend, right? So one of my friends lives in Singapore. He's telling me the story, and he goes, well, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go to Alice Springs, which is in the middle of Australia, and it's super dry there. The land is cheap. I'm going to buy a load of land, and I'm going to just fill it with aircraft hangars and a runway. And then in between all of these, you know, all of these leases, they can store their planes there, and they can pay me to store them. And he's like, okay, great. So he did that, and look, it sounds easy, right? But it's not, obviously not. So he did that. He got it done, and he finished the project. It was completely ready to go. February 2020.
Oh,
and no, but hold on, COVID hit, and then it was instantly full, and he made an absolute fortune, and full for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been better for him, basically. The whole the shutdown, so they had to store their planes, and then that's where they stored them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, my son's on the flight line. So he spent a year in the manufacturing plant. So he saw the whole plane getting built. And actually, back in October, we went to Family Day. And I know some of you have heard this before, so please, I'll keep it short. We went to Family Day. And there's about 8 or 9,000 people that work in the Charleston plant in South Carolina. But there were about 20,000 people out there, you know, all the family. And you got the tour of the facility. It's like a surgical center. Beautiful facility. I mean, it's mint. And so my son's on the flight line. So what he does is when the planes roll out of the manufacturing plant, he gets them ready for delivery for the customers. And then also any planes that come back that need to get tweaked, whether it's in the cargo bay or the wheel wells or up in the cockpit, whatever it might be, he goes and fixes all that stuff. And they had planes from all over the world that were on the tarmac. I mean, there were some of these airlines I didn't even know existed, you know. But here in the States, actually, some of the airlines, they will put, like United, they just bought 100 planes, you know, from Boeing. So it's not all leasing. But the bottom line is, when the shutdown happened, you know, just like your friend, you know, that was good timing. He probably didn't think it was going to happen, but
no, he had no clue. Yeah,
he had no clue.
He still had an idea. He just got lucky. But interestingly, the United, oftentimes they will then become a leaser. So they'll buy those planes and then lease those planes to other companies. So there's a lot of money to be made at leasing as well.
You know, it's just like a retail store. You know, when retail stores, you know, they'll have them, and then the old store, they'll say, you know, we have a new prototype, so we're going to get out of that lease, and then another retailer's going to come in and they're going to put a new sign on it, you know, new fixtures, new whatever. The same thing that, you know, that's what they do. Some of these planes come in, they repaint them, they put new colors on them, you know, they upgrade them, and boom, then they go out again, you know, to another airlines. And so, you know, it's kind of a, you know, a recycling gig. You know, it's not like they're, so I totally get it. But, you know, your friend had, you know, when that whole shutdown thing happened, no one knew, you know, what was going to go on. So, you know, being in the right place in the right time, timing in business is everything. So kudos to him for coming up with that idea. And you're right. You got to keep that stuff in. But, you know, the biggest thing with my son was when he went and decided to go that route was he knew that that all these people were going to retire and no one was going to fill these positions. So, you know, a lot of the flights these days, they're getting canceled. You know, they don't have the pilots, the plane, you know, didn't have its maintenance schedule. So flying here in the States is kind of dicey. You know, you don't know if your plane's going to show up or if it's going to be late or, you know, whatever. You know, a lot's changed, you know, over the last couple of years. But I'll tell you, I was so proud when I went out there to see what he did and to see the way that, you know, he would, you know, just the way that they treated their employees, and, you know, everything was top notch. Safety was, you know, the major priority about it. I'll tell you, look, you know, the composite material that they build those planes with, it's like super thin. There's nothing in between you and about 36,000 feet. It's an amazing, you know, thing to, you know, process to see. And I always tell people, if you ever get an opportunity to take a tour of one of those facilities, manufacturing, you know, whatever it might be, it's amazing what construction. I mean, they're building something, and it comes out, and you're like, wow, and it flies, and flying in itself, you know, lift and all that. So, but so getting back to yesterday, talking to these guys, and you know, everybody realizes that things have to change here, especially in the States with education. And you know, getting people to be, you know, become welders, electricians, plumbers, superintendents, project managers, whatever it might be. We need them, you know, auto mechanics, whatever it might be. And you know, it's crucial, you know, because, you know, when these guys retire, you got to have someone to step up. It's just like when someone gets hurt on, you know, someone gets hurt on a team, you got to have someone else, you know, on the bench that's going to step up and fill that spot. And then it's time to shine.
Well, it's interesting with ChatGPT that's come in, which I'm sure you're aware of. I think everyone expected AI to replace blue collar jobs. And it actually looks like AI is probably going to replace white collar jobs first, because you know, you basically need mechanics. So you need, like, AI needs to develop machines to replace blue collar jobs, which is very expensive, and that will take time. Whereas now the AI online, I mean, this ChatGPT has done the bar in New York, has done accountancy exams and passed. And yeah, so you're right, like, we probably need to move in different directions. And yeah, I'd say the next 5 years are going to be very interesting.
AI, I could talk about AI for hours and hours and hours, because it's got its pros and it has its cons. You know, as a publisher, I post content, and right now AI can create content for you. And you know, and Google doesn't like that stuff. You know, so when you know, someone, you know, wants to post something on there, I tell them outright, hey, if you send me AI content, you know, I had to get software to find out if it's AI generated or not, because
right.
You know, because what we'll do is I'll just get AI and I'll produce content, and I won't have to do any work, and I'll cut corners and I'll still get paid, you know. And I'm like, not on this site, because I want to make sure that, you know, it's handwritten coming from here. And you know, but AI in construction, hey, if you're doing a multi-story building and you need to hang the HVAC ducts and you want them all straight, you know, consistent, where if it's a human, it might be a little off here and there, even though it looks straight, AI can do that stuff. And so, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm with Elon Musk on AI. You know, it's kind of like a thoroughbred. You gotta hold the reins tight on AI, because it's, you know, it's a dicey concept. And listen, I'm learning every day about AI, and but it's an awesome tool, don't get me wrong, and especially in construction. But it's, you know, you're still gonna have people have to deliver stuff. You know, do I see robots down the road driving trucks, or, you know, hanging drywall, or, you know, you're still gonna have to have guys to build all that stuff. You know, maybe down the road, 100 years from now, there'll be robots building robots. I don't know, you know, but you know, if it's handled correctly and, you know, throttled in and let it grow in the correct way, I think AI is a big asset. But you're right. You know, the white collar things, they might go first versus the blue collar. I just think that, oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, you can't get, you know, you can sit at your desk all day, run a company, but you still need people to do stuff, whether it's getting your donuts in the morning or, getting your project done, human labor, it's just going to have to transform itself. It just will. And, the whole shutdown thing, I feel terrible about a lot of the businesses, especially here in the state. A lot of the restaurants, that aren't here, and a lot of the people that lost their jobs, some people don't want to go back to their jobs. There's positives and that came out of it. Number one, I learned more about my business than I ever did. Number one. Number two, people became more efficient. Number three, you found out that you had more to life than just work. All right. And that's been an amazing thing that I've seen, that people, that they know that they can work at home, they can be productive. They don't need to go into a cubicle and work all day. They don't need to burn gas and sit in rush hour traffic and all that stuff. And number four is that there's so many other things that you can do. And if you want to make a change, all you have to do is have a starting point and go for it. I just did a 12-week digital boot camp and learned so much about digital. I'm a digital guy now. So I told my wife I was going to take this class, and she was like, but every week, homework, studied, I'm a certified, digital marketer right now. And I learned so much, but the biggest thing was mindset. Don't surround yourself with negative people. Get rid of them. But there are so many people that are out on the internet, 8 billion people on the planet that are out there. And once you have a website, you might be in the middle of nowhere, have a little website. Once you're on the web, you're a global company. Anybody can find you. And it was really, really, you can teach an old dog new tricks, in my opinion, as long as you have the will and the openness to take in that knowledge. And so it's been the last couple of years, I think people have learned a lot about just staying alive and keeping, the blinders on and looking forward and staying positive. And that you really, really can, be productive. You just have to have the will, and you have to, keep yourself on a steady course. But your sector, though, what you do is so important, because once again, without the subs, you can't get the job done. And we don't want them going out of business. We want them to be profitable, because they'll hire more people. They make more money. They spend money in the economy. That's good. You can build more bridges. You can build more this. You can build more that. I mean, it's a supply and demand issue. And so, yeah, I'm with you. So look, if there was one positive thought or phrase that you want to leave with our audience on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk out there, as we go in, towards the end of the, Q1 here in 2023, what would it be?
Oh, I think, there's a lot of negativity about the construction industry at the moment, right now, and the economy in general, inflation and all of that. But I think that construction is as industries go, is probably one of the best to be in, because even with AI, even with things like when you're still building things, you might have to innovate, but we're always going to be building things. We're always going to be renovating things. We're always going to be doing things. So fantastic. Look, for me, construction has been such a big part of my life. I love it. I remember being in Iraq on a building site right near the border where Saddam invaded Kuwait. We're in a cabin, and there's Irish people there, there's American people there, there's Scottish, Welsh, and we're all there. And we had a George Foreman, and we're eating, bacon sandwiches, and had like everyone brought their own thing from their own country, and we just had, like, every Friday, the smell coming out of this cabin was atrocious, I'm sure, but the fun we had is just a fantastic industry to be part of. And I think the outlook in general is pretty good. I do really think, though, that there's going to be a swing with materials. The whole supply glut is going to come back around, and there's going to be a supply, almost oversupply, of when it all gets released back onto the market. So I think prices will come down from a materials point of view. but from a resources and people point of view, I don't. That's a hard one to call, to be honest.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the labor thing, that's a long-term solution. The product that'll come back. I mean, a little bit. I mean, listen, timber in general has come down, but it's still a little high from where it was. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, if you're a subcontractor out there and you had some questions or they wanted to bounce something off of you, how would someone reach out to you?
So just we kind of have, so first of all, we got a podcast called Construction Secrets. So on that, basically, I walk through all the different problems that you might have with your contracts not getting paid. So just by listening to that, you're going to upskill yourself. We've got a website called constructionsecrets.io. So loads of free training on there. Just go there, just look at the free training. And then if you're a company doing more than 5 million in revenue, then you can go to our website, quantumcontractsolutions.com. There's a free case study on there with a video, and you can watch that video. And then if you're interested, you can book in a call with our team.
Awesome. Awesome. If someone wants to get in touch with me, I'm at David C at ccr-mag.com. Listen, I say it all the time. If you don't buy a lottery ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't look at it. I'll find it's very tough to get in the magazine, but we have, all the social media platforms and we post every day. And so send me something. I look at everything. I try to get back to everybody. But listen, free PR is good PR. So send it to me and we'll get it out there. It's a win-win. You can share it on your social media, and it's the wild, wild west on the web. So we'd love to hear from you. And hopefully you'll get us over 30 million visitors here on the site here in 2023 at the end of the year. So Cian, pleasure speaking to you down under. And Australia is one of the places I've never been. My parents had gone there, a couple of times, and scuba dived, and all that, and the pictures they brought back just looks like an awesome place. The people look like they're loads of fun, and so pleasure speaking with you. And thanks for reaching out. We're connected now, and thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You and I kind of have the same background. I never thought about the cigarette hanging out of my mouth when I was on the site. But there were plenty of guys out there. Yeah. Here's a fun story for you before we go. We're doing this demolition of these big tanks off of I-95 and outside of Philadelphia, and we had to knock off all the asbestos off the pipes before we knocked the building down. So it's about 110 degrees, hot summer. I've got the white suit, the gloves. So they bring this crew in. And these guys come in and they're not wearing their mask. And I'm like, dude, man, you're not wearing your mask. And he's like, oh, I don't need that mask. And there goes half his lung, And I was like, I got my mask on. I'm not wearing, So there you go. Look and you learn. And anyway, hard work pays off. Nothing wrong with sweat. Washing your hands feels good. Get that dirt off. You're productive. So anyway, everybody out there, enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. Go Eagles, go Kansas City, enjoy the game, have fun, recharge your battery. Got next week coming, it's going to be here before you know it. And, the most important thing, be safe out there on the construction site. So, Cian, say goodbye from down there in Perth.
I will. Thank you for having me on, David. Goodbye to all your listeners. Hopefully I'll catch you again on another one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say goodbye in Sugar Hill, just below the Beaufort Dam, about 25 miles north of downtown Atlanta, Georgia, which is the LA of the South. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. I look forward to seeing you in person one of these days, okay?
Sounds good. I'm traveling.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you. Everybody out there, see you next time.